I'm very excited to welcome to the next 24-hour podcast, Liz Dreckman and Dr. Barbara Duncan. Now, if you've been thinking about what you're going to do with your kids as we move into this next school year, well, I have a couple resources that are going to be sharing amazing insights. They've been working with schools for decades on Choose a School, on the best thing for educators, on the best thing for students and parents, and how to choose the best path for your child to get the best education. There's never been a more important time for us to get that information from experts, and that's why I'm so excited to have them as our guest today. Welcome to the next 24 hours, where I'm going to give you real information you can really use to transform your life and work one day at a time. I'll be your host, Curtis Zimmerman. I'm so excited to go ahead and get on and start talking in a deep way with Liz and Barbara, two of the most amazing women and great friends. Welcome to the show, the next 24 hours, Liz and Barbara. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning, Curtis. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. I am so impressed by both of you, and every time I get the opportunity to spend time with you, I'm always amazed at your heart and what you give and the way you believe in kids and their abilities and the tools you try to give teachers. So I have to just go to the beginning. We're going to jump off and start with Liz. First question is to you, Liz, and that is, how did you get involved with this movement and changing laws? And I mean, what was the impetus to make you move in that direction?
Well, I was an intern, like many people are, at a think tank about 20 years ago. And I was filing like interns do. Not very exciting, but I really did love learning about education and property rights and the things that I was working on. But I read this article where a parent was sent to jail overnight because she used her sister's address in order to send her child to a different school because they just had so many issues with the school that they were assigned to. And I just was sitting there, and I'll never forget that day because I just thought, man, this is something that would happen in a communist country or a third world country, not in the United States. And being, 20 and just very idealistic, I said, I'm going to go fix this. And here I am 20 years later, still working on the same issues. And I really do have a passion for making sure that each kid is able to go to the place that suits their needs best. And so that's kind of what started me on this path. And I've been doing it ever since.
Wow. And that's amazing. And every since is the part I'm excited to talk about. Let's move to the challenge of somebody being arrested for that, all the way back to, Barbara, I'd love to hear a little bit about your background, about your, it's so impressive what you've done, but could you tell us a little bit just about who you are and then how you and Liz met? That would be great.
Well, I'd like to tell you my school choice story, too, as to how I became such a passionate advocate for this initiative. So I live in an old mill factory town in Ansonia, Connecticut. And their school system is really a failing school system. It has been for generations. When the time came to send my children to school, I was looking for options. And I did try the public school system, and they were far behind what I was looking for an educational experience. I then had to go to a private school because we're zip code regulated here in Connecticut. And the private schools were so expensive, I had to take out loans for my children to go to private schools because I was a school teacher at the time. And I felt that was so unfair, but I was fortunate enough that I was able to afford to take out the loans, but I couldn't help think about the children that didn't have that option and opportunity. When my husband's job took us to Arizona, And I learned about charter schools and happened to land a job in an excellent charter school in Arizona. I couldn't believe that it was free. It was better than the expensive private school in Connecticut that I was sending my child to. And I just firmly believed at that point that this option has to be available for all children. When I met up with Liz and she was doing the scholarship programs for tax credits for low-income children and handicapped children to get free scholarships to attend private schools, was the other piece of the puzzle that made total sense to me. And so I have been fighting ever since to have these options available for all children.
Wow. And it's interesting because there you were as a school teacher and you had to take loans out to put your kids in a place that you thought they'd get the education they want. Let's talk a little bit more to now you're in Arizona. Tell us a little bit about what you did while you were there, bringing us kind of up to date, just kind of your resume take, because it's so impressive. I'd love for everyone to hear it.
So when I landed in Arizona, I got off the plane and went on my first interview at EduPrize Charter Schools. They were an A+ charter school in Arizona, and they hired me on the spot. And little did I know I had to start the next week in the middle of July, because that's what they do in Arizona. They start school very early. And so I took the leap and said, okay, and I never came back to Connecticut after that. I started working there as a vice principal at EduPrize Charter Schools, and then they were expanding, and they expanded to Queen Creek, so I assisted with that expansion of the school replication, and they promoted me to their chief operating officer in charge of that, and then we expanded a nonprofit school in Mesa called Step Up Schools, so I was the lead person in that initiative.
Great. And I know you've been a principal and many other things as well.
Yeah, so then after a while, my career took me to California, where I was an assistant superintendent of schools, and I worked for a charter school network called Pathways in Education, which brings out charter schools across the country. They were a dropout prevention program that did innovative methods like blended learning, which is now being initiated throughout the country now. But back then when I began it was very innovative. And so I worked across the countries in many different states, bringing that school. We brought it to Arizona as well. And the time came when I wanted to get back to Arizona, and I reconnected with Liz. And then Liz offered me this wonderful opportunity to assist with Choose a School. And I've been with that program ever since, and truly believe in the mission, and hope to continue growing it in Arizona and across the country is our vision.
Love it. Love it. Okay. So, Liz, I have to do a little bit of the background first, because I want anyone that's listening to realize if you have grandkids, if you have kids of your own, if you are trying to decide how to handle COVID and looking at, is it safe for my kids to go back to school, and how do we navigate the world we live in today with higher education and with grade school, and we're going to get to all of those things, but I think the backstory is so important. So I would love, Liz, for you to tell a little bit about the last time I came to Arizona, and I did some teacher in-services, as well I did some school assemblies, getting people excited about writing the next chapter and change and all of those things. But the highlight of the trip for me was the last night when I was able to be your guest for a screening in a movie theater to a very special movie, and then also got to sit next to a very special guest. I'd love for you to share a little bit about that story, because I think it really encompasses the mission and the love for Choose a School and the way it impacts people's lives.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So one of my roles, first I worked at the think tank, and then I moved to Washington, D.C., and worked for a nonprofit law firm there that defends families in school choice cases. So when a school choice case passes, usually there's opposition to it that tries to stop parents from using those options. And so my job was to work with families to basically give them a voice. And one of the things that our organization did during that time was work on the DC school choice battle. And through that, I met the most amazing woman, Virginia Walden Ford. And there's a movie made about her life called Miss Virginia that just came out last year. And really, it makes me kind of teary to even talk about it. Virginia is just an amazing woman that has spent her whole life fighting for school choice options for families. And she kind of came through it by just experiencing kind of what Barbara was describing, just not being able to find the right place. In her case, it just wasn't safe where she was sending her son to school, and trying to find the option to be able to pay for tuition at a private school was just really stressful and impossible. And so Ginny spent just now over a decade fighting for parents in DC to have that option. And so the movie is about her life and about basically her story with her son, and then also the battle to get school choice for families in DC, which has now existed for over a decade. But it's just an ongoing battle there. And so it was really an honor to be able to see the movie with her and to have her out to share it with other families in DC. And I think all of us were in tears by the end of the movie, just knowing what people have gone through to fight for this option that seems like it should be so obvious for parents to be able to make that decision.
And I would just say I was so moved myself. And first question before I add to that, and that is, if anyone that's listening would like to watch the movie, is there any way to access that? Do you know, is it on YouTube or Netflix, or do we know the answer to that?
I believe it's on Netflix and Amazon. It's available in many different, maybe even Google Play. So you can definitely access it online and many of the video services.
Great. Will you give us the title one more time?
It's called Miss Virginia.
Miss Virginia. So there I was that evening. I'd spent, I think, a week touring schools and doing in-services, and it was a great time hanging out with you and Barbara, and then there we are, and for whatever reason, everyone's greeting her and talking to her, and I go sit down, and then the last minute the lights are going out, and she comes and sits down and happens to be sitting next to me, and I don't really know what's going to happen in the movie, and it ends up being a real heartfelt heart tug on me, because it's about kind of inner city life, and it's about the struggles, and it was very relevant to me in the way I grew up and some of the things I had seen growing up. And I remember, even though she and I just met 10 minutes prior to the movie starting, with a regular greet and how are you and great to meet you kind of thing, as the movie was going on, I kept getting caught up in the movie more and more. And toward the end, I really was crying. Like, I couldn't hold it in. And I'll never forget, as long as I live, that as I was doing that, she reached over and held my hand. And it just made the movie, and the way the movie portrayed her as this loving, giving person, it made it come to where I was sitting, because that's she couldn't stop herself from a complete stranger crying during the movie, hold his hand to say, it's going to be okay. It's all going to work out in some way, shape, or form. And that just was like mind-boggling for me. And so thank you, Liz and Barbara, for everything it took to make that evening happen, but also to give me that moment in my life that I will never forget. And it was very moving. So I want to go to kind of the mission of Choose a School and what you guys are doing now. And I know that I've had the pleasure of getting to work with you the last few years and doing some events and things. But tell us, if nobody knows what Choose a School is, tell us a little bit about some of the services you provide, specifically what kind of schools you help. Are you only charter schools? Are you only private schools? If I'm a public school and we need some information you have, can we access that? Those are the kinds of things I just want to let any of our listeners know what it is you actually do.
Sure. When I moved to Arizona, I started working at a nonprofit that offers scholarships to families who are looking to send their kids to private school. And while we were doing that, Barbara and I started working together on School Choice Week activities, which if you don't know about that, I encourage people to check out School Choice Week. But we started doing events and information sessions and just celebrations of all the options that are available. And it became really obvious that there were wait lists around the state for charter schools, for scholarships, for even for interdistrict public schools where kids can transfer between districts. And so we started Choose a School because we wanted to help families find that other option. If they were looking at option A and it was full, we didn't want kids to wait, 3 years, 6 years to get into a school that met their needs. So that was really the birth of Choose a School. And we do two things. One thing is help parents find a school that's a good fit. And then we also help parents and families know what all of their options are. And then on the school side, we've been building a network of over 450 schools that we help them with outreach, with informing parents of what's awesome about their school. We help them with everything from marketing to teacher recruitment to, for the last 3 months, we've been basically trying to help schools navigate the whole COVID situation. So that's what Choose a School does.
I'd also like to add that we work with the legislators and assist schools in bringing them to their schools to see them in action. So as they're creating the bills, they are informed, because many times they really don't know all that the great schools are doing in their districts.
I love that. And I know that you've been asked to speak several different times to lots of different committees and things like that. And you have friends that really are advocates for this in order to get laws changed. Can you talk a little bit about the kinds of people that have helped you through that? I'd love to give a shout out to those that really support the concept. And just anyone that's listening, why am I doing this podcast? What is this about? Why does Curtis Zimmerman care? And it's because when I was growing up, oftentimes I have learning disabilities, and we moved 27 times when I was growing up. And oftentimes I would be in a school and they would have the services and the things I needed, and the special ed program was amazing. And then I would come home from school and the car would be loaded up and we were moving. Normally we'd move maybe 7 blocks, right? We weren't moving to another state. It was just to get out of that rent or get away from bad elements or whatever. But come to find out, I had moved into a different area code. Therefore, I had to change my school, even though it wasn't much further and I could have found a way there. So that's one of the reasons why I'm a huge advocate for this. I think that you shouldn't let your zip code define where you go to school. It should be your need and who's going to serve you best. And I know that's what they're all about. And the way that happens is not by us just talking about it, but by having people change laws. So will you talk a little bit about some of the people that have helped you do that, and some of the people we want to make sure, we want to recognize to say thank you for all the help they've done for you guys?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. There are just so many organizations, both in Arizona and across the country, that have defended parents' rights to pick the school that is best for their child. And, I am a parent of a child that has a 504 as well. And it was really interesting to walk through that as a parent and not just an advocate, and see kind of how difficult that is to navigate. Many of the groups I mentioned, National School Choice Week has been around for more than 10 years, and they've done an amazing job of kind of bringing together organizations that support public district schools, public charter schools, homeschooling, online education. Just really encourage people to check them out and get involved with what they're doing. The Alliance for School Choice and Ed Choice have been around for over 15 years, more than 20 years for Ed Choice, just helping in every state across the country. A for Arizona is a great organization in Arizona that's helping quality schools do their jobs better and helping them, meet metrics and helping them reach out to families and serve their families better. Just lots of really great organizations. There are over 50 scholarship organizations in Arizona that do great work helping families access private schools and advocating for them. I think there are over 35 organizations in Arizona that do education advocacy work. And so most of them are listed on the National School Choice Week website. And we're happy to put anybody in touch with them as well. So we work really hard to make sure that parents know about all of their options and also know how they can get involved. Because once a parent finds that right school and finds that place that's really meeting their child's needs, they really want to bring other parents to that school or other parents to that experience and tell them, no, you don't have to, sit there and be in a place that is not working for them. There's so many amazing options. And that was really why I moved to Arizona, because they really are at the forefront of offering all of these amazing choices. And it's so important this year. Parents don't have to just pick between their assigned school or not at all, or their assigned school and doing homeschool. There are online schools. Parents can transfer between districts if they don't like the plan that some school district came up with for COVID. If they're going twice a week and they want their child to go every day, they can transfer between districts. And my life dream is to see every parent be able to do this across the country.
Anything you'd like to add to that, Barbara?
I think Liz and I are right on target with wanting to see that initiative across the country. Every child should have the right to go to the school that best fits their needs. And it shouldn't be based upon if they can afford it or not. And we're leaving so many children behind in many states because they don't have the laws that Arizona has in place to support families.
Hello everyone, my name is Noah Zimmerman, and I'm the narrator of the audiobook version of Life at Performance Level. I'm sorry to interrupt this episode, but I just wanted to let you know that right now at curtiszimmerman.com, the audiobook version of Life at Performance Level is being offered absolutely
right
free.
Now, when we talk
it's right
about
there
so
on the
many
center of
things
the
that are
landing
going on
page.
in
There's
our
a button that
communities
says free
and,
VIP experience.
With rioting
just click
and
that
protesting
and you'll have
and all
access
of
to
these
the audiobook and lots of other content that'll help you live the dream.
You've been advocating
Thank you
for
so much for
years
listening, and let's get back to the program.
With some of that, because we could really kind of flatten the curve a little bit as far as giving everybody a great education that they deserve. And I know that's part of your mission, is making sure doesn't matter what neighborhood you grow up in, doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter what your challenges are. Everyone should have accessible, really high quality, loving, safe environments for education. Would you agree with that?
Yes, for sure.
Love it. Okay. So let's talk about today and where we are today. I know you have a real pulse on schools and the challenges schools are facing with reopening. And I think that, my family with three teenagers, we really got a huge new belief system installed when it comes to what works and what doesn't work with homeschooling. And nobody's calling it homeschooling, but everybody, that's what they all did. They were home and they were schooling, so that's homeschooling. But, online learning or distance learning or whatever it is you want to call it, I think changed a lot of people's ideals about what it takes to educate our kids and how we can do it well. So first question I have for all the people that are listening is, do you have any predictions of how many people are feeling comfortable with going back into the school? And do you think there are going to be delays, or do you have any concepts of just kind of as a parent, what we can expect this next year to look like? And I know you don't have any definitive answers, and I know it's changing every minute, but would love to just get your 10,000 feet opinion kind of what your overview is of where we are today.
It really is changing every minute. It's been so interesting to watch. And there was a survey done, or a poll done about a month and a half ago. And it asked parents, do you want your kids to get back to school in the summer, in the fall, with all this COVID stuff going on? And 70% of them said, yes, absolutely. And then the other question was, do you feel safe sending your kids back to school? And 70% of them said no. So it's been a really tough thing for schools to navigate, and even for states to navigate, because, every state is kind of its own little island with this situation. Some are kind of past their peak. Some are just in like Arizona is in a really terrible situation. Our ICUs are almost full. We're kind of at our peak, and it's just, it's a really difficult thing to navigate for schools. And so what I have told parents continuously is, don't look at what happened in the spring as what's going to be offered in the fall. So if you've enrolled your child in a really awesome school, you love the community, you love the teachers, you believe in what they're teaching and how they're teaching it, and your child was doing really good there, don't abandon it just because of COVID. What schools offered on the fly with very little notice, and they couldn't even have their teachers back to teach them how to use the online modules. What was offered in the spring was just not what a school would offer if they had time to plan. So I really do believe that schools are going to offer quality options online, and that parents are going to go where they can use those options for a short period of time until some of this calms down. There are lots of parents that do want to go back in the fall, especially in states where they've kind of met their peak, and there are less and less infections. And so I really think Arizona also led the way on this in telling schools you need to offer three options. You need to offer an online option, you need to offer an in-person option, and you need to offer a blended option for if there's, if a parent wants that blended option, like 2 days at school, 3 days at home, or if there's an outbreak in your school and everybody needs to go home for 2 weeks. So, this is something that I keep reiterating what you said, Curtis, to our schools and saying, nobody signed up for this job. nobody signed up to wear all these hats and have to rewrite their entire curriculum for an online module without having to have, years to prepare for it. So we just need to offer a lot of grace, but I'm encouraging families, do what works for your kiddos and realize that this situation really is temporary. It might not be over in 6 months, but we'll have much better treatments. We'll have hopefully a vaccine. We'll have a way to mitigate the worst effects of it. So I really encourage families not to abandon a really awesome school that you worked hard to get your kid to, just because spring looked kind of messy.
Wow, that's great advice. And I would just say it's so important. A couple points that you made is doing something where we just one day we didn't do it and then we flipped a switch and now we did. That's going to look very different than having the time, the opportunity, and the mental capacity of gearing up for, okay, what's online learning going to look like next year? So I think that's so insightful, but I also think it's important that we remember that's what your kids did and that's what you did as a parent. And you may not have set up the environment the best for success either. So retraining your kids to what the online situation might look like and having some real goals and guidelines of getting up and taking a shower and getting some breakfast and having a workstation that's dedicated for them, those kinds of things will have a huge impact on what their online learning experience will look like. And I know everyone didn't do that. I know everyone didn't have time to think about it, but I really think there is more falling on the parent to help your kids succeed if they're studying in your family room or at the kitchen table or in their bedroom. And that's another piece of it. I think that, parents have to just forget about what you did before to get through it. And let's think about how we're going to embrace this change and make it actually a success.
Oh, absolutely. I think, as a parent, it was really hard to navigate and everybody was trying to work at home. So you had, potentially two parents working at home, chasing around the toddler and trying to do school. And for single parents, it was even more difficult, especially if they had multiple kids and multiple grades on trying to find multiple devices to do online school. So I think what people did in the spring was heroic. And I think going into the new school year, they just need to be really direct with their kids and say, hey, this is something we're just going to navigate together. And I really feel like I read someone online, a writer wrote about, kids pick up on our anxiety. So if we present this kind of, we can't go back to school till October, this is horrible, I hate it, I can't believe this is happening, the kids are going to have that attitude. And if we present it as, hey, we're going to figure this out. I know you want to go see your friends. Let's figure out how to do, Zoom trivia calls with our friends. We just did that with our daughter. Let's figure out how to do some of these fun things that you can't do in person right now, but let's do them together, and find a workaround for that. If kids really pick up on our attitudes and our approach to things. So I think the most important thing parents can do, besides the curriculum they choose or whatever they decide to do for the fall, or if they go one day a week or not at all, they just really need to present it to their kids as an opportunity, and we're going to do this together. And that will make the kids a lot less anxious about all of the weirdness of it all.
Absolutely. And I would love to just, it's so hard because everyone is exhausted, including me.
Totally.
And we want it to be over. And I get it. And it's, it comes in waves. And there's this, and we're going to be shut down for 3 weeks, and then it's 3 months, and then, a civil unrest, and it comes in waves. And so having said that, I would love for Barbara to talk a little bit about if I'm a teacher and I'm looking for resources, or if I'm an administrator, or if I am somebody that owns a charter school or needs resources on how to navigate some of the challenges. I know that is one of the things the two of you work on, and you have bi-weekly calls with anyone that wants to listen in. Just let's move to the administrating side for a minute, and some of the resources and things. Where can they get them? What is it for? How do you help schools operate? Because I know that's another big part of what you do.
So the schools have to make the big decisions, as Liz was talking about, because they have a fiduciary obligation to provide a safe environment for the students and the staff, and anyone else actually who enters their doors. So to just open their school doors without thinking that through is a huge challenge. This is like an unregulated experiment that is happening. The COVID-19 pandemic, we know that it's especially harmful for the school community and students that come in. So we know by opening the door face to face, there will be cases of COVID in the school eventually, especially in communities that are surging with the virus. And infectious control doctors say that there should be a 14-day downward trend before even considering it. And other doctors did a scale of where activities fall regarding infection, and schools came down as a number 6 out of a 1 to 9 scale with a moderate risk. So you know that in opening the doors, there's a moderate risk. Many schools in Arizona, where we primarily work, have started with distance learning. So they began with distance learning and are looking at the trends in Arizona and when a safe opening is. Let's make sure we're opening the doors and it's safe for our students primarily and our staff.
Can you tell our listeners where they could possibly go to get some more information about those answers and where you guys provide that information?
Sure. We have a Facebook page, and that's where we post most of the information earliest. And so it's facebook.com/ChooseASchoolAZ. And, if there is news about what's going on in Arizona schools or an update from the state, we post it there right away. We post the new CDC regulations and recommendations there. And we also have weekly or every 2-week calls for schools on kind of what the latest news is, what the latest guidance is.
Okay. If you would like to reach us for any resources and or participate in our weekly Zoom calls, please contact me at barbara@chooseaschoolaz.org. That's Barbara, BARBARA, at chooseaschoolaz.org.
One last thing I wanted to cover before we blast off, and that is you're all about the parents making sure they have their kids in the correct school. You're all about the administrators having the tools they need to reach the kids. And then also, you never forget about, well, what about the kids themselves? And what kind of information and what kind of inspiration are they getting day to day? And that's why I was excited the last few years to come out for the Choose a School week, where it's all things programming, it's all things for the kids, special events and giveaways, and it was amazing. Teacher in-services. And last year, I don't know how many thousands of kids we spoke to and how many different schools we reached. And this year, obviously, because of what's happening right now, we're really not going to be able to get 800 kids in a giant auditorium. And when I say kids, these are grade school and middle school and high school, so the whole gamut there, in large groups to listen to an inspirational message or listen to something that's going to give them more tools. And so we are excited that we're going to be doing a virtual school assembly, and I'm excited to be shooting that very soon. And that's going to be offered to schools to get kids engaged in the morning, to keep them excited, to share with them best practices to succeed, and also the juggling and the fire eating and all the things we do to keep them engaged, but then also give teachers a real way to connect with community, because one of the problems is when you're doing online learning is how do we have the teachers and the students connect in a real way, because they're not in the classroom and you don't have that kind of rapport like you normally do. So we have a little bit of life at performance level, a little bit of writing scripts. And, Simon Says basically is what we're playing when we go out in the world. We have to stop and think about what we touch, and we have to think about putting a mask on ahead of time. And so that's basically the game Simon Says, but we're doing it every day, giving him those tools, but then also having a little teacher guide that allows them to play a little of the video, pause it, and then, open it up for questions and really start conversations about, hey, what's the one thing that actually is positive from being locked down for 9 weeks or whatever it was. And so giving them some ways to connect with the students. And I'm really excited about this, but also, if you're a school and you're looking for a resource like that, once you get locked in and we do this virtual assembly, then Liz and Barbara have just like encyclopedic type of information that they also can share and bring to you as needed. So anyone that's listening that is interested in that, that's something else I would say that I'm very excited to be partnering with them to bring out to as many schools as possible. So having said that, I would just love Liz and Barbara for you to each kind of just talk a little bit about, as we exit out of the program today, some of the things that you hope, administrators, we have a lot of people that we're calling heroes right now. And I have to be honest with you, a lot of the people that are dealing with this every day and trying to navigate what do we do and how do we line kids up and how many kids can be in a classroom and what do we do if my teacher is 60 and they're going to be exposed potentially and liability, and there's a lot. If you had a one-on-one conversation with those administrators and those folks, do you have any advice or any kind of just ways to help them kind of navigate this? Because I know it's very, very challenging, and my heart goes out to them because there are a lot of people's lives at stake.
Well, I would just say that, we have, in every single call we've had every week with our school leaders, we've just said, look, you are, what you said, Curtis, you're taking on multiple new jobs and roles that you never really signed up for. And you're doing it on behalf of the kids and putting their safety first and thinking about all the anxiety and concerns that their parents have and trying to be receptive to that. And we have really encouraged school leaders to really ask families weekly, to survey their families weekly, and to just keep a pulse of what their families are thinking and feeling. And they've done an amazing job of this. And I think every school leader that's navigating this is also concerned about their own family and their own situation. And so I would just encourage them to see this as it's a temporary thing, and it's a way that they can reach out and be a resource to their families and help them navigate through whatever they're going through, job loss or the health concerns, or, maybe families are trying to figure out how to meet the needs of their special needs kiddo at home. And schools really can be that community and a safety net for their families through this.
Yes, I think Liz summed that up very well, very nicely. The schools are the hub of the community and can be the safety net for the students and their families, and that this is only temporary. But I would highly encourage them to continue with providing a quality distance learning program, and that doesn't have to be just on the computer. There are other ways to also supplement that, to engage students and to come up with those best practices, knowing that one day this will be over. We will all be back in the classroom face to face, and that's really what everyone wants. That is the goal, but when it's safe to do so.
Absolutely. Well, everyone that's listening, I hope that you will take the advice and realize that this isn't the next normal. It's just the next thing. And this is not normal. What we're talking about today on this program isn't normal. Normal will happen, but that isn't what we're dealing with now. And we have to go at it and give 100% to, equip our kids for success. And that's our goal. And Liz and Barbara are two people that, outside of all things that are going on now, their heart and their love for students and educators just is, if you ever have the chance to be in the same room with them, it'll be just an amazing gift, because that's what they bring every day. So I want to thank you for the time, for being on our program the next 24 hours, and thank you so much for what you give every day. God bless you all. Stay safe and keep living the dream.
Thank you.
Thanks, Curtis.
Thank you. And now it's time for my favorite part of our podcast. It's called the 24-Hour Challenge. And that's where we take the information we just listened to, and then we do something in our actual real life to prepare ourselves, to make the world better, to make ourselves better. So here is your 24-hour challenge. I want you to look at the description below, and you're going to see something that says 10 strategies to maintain sanity during a family quarantine. I want you to click on that, and I want you to download it, because what it is it's everything you're going to need at your fingertips to think about when you find out at some point you're going to be doing remote learning once more. Now, I know you don't want to be thinking about that, but this is something you can download, you can print out, so in case it happens, you're prepared. Keep living the dream and stay safe and healthy.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of The Next 24 Hours. Don't forget that to access the free audiobook that's available right now, go to curtiszimmerman.com and click Free VIP Experience on the landing page. Have a great day, and remember to keep living the dream.